Hey, kia ora, and how we're doing? I am with you at Ardmore Airfield here in Auckland, New Zealand, and just thought we'd do a quick walk around on an airplane I've started flying a bit more lately, the Havilland Tiger Moth. Now you might have seen my chipmunk videos. To quote, or misquote I believe, Darth Vader in the Star Wars trilogy, Chipmunk, I am your father. You'll notice a few similarities between the Tiger Moth here and the Chipmunk, primarily up the front. The engine's kind of similar. I won't undo the cowlings on this walk around. We'll do a proper engine one later. But the Chipmunk was designed to replace the Tiger Moth. So they built just under 10,000 of these. I'm sure someone can tell me in the comments what the number is. From 1931 to the end of World War II, and they thought the Chipmunk would replace it. The Chipmunk is, by all measures, a better aeroplane. Problem is, there were thousands and thousands of cheap Tiger Moths available, so they were all snapped up by flying schools, private owners, top dressing companies here in New Zealand, gliding clubs, all sorts of operators, and many hundreds of them soldier on to this day. Differences from the Chipmunk, well, it's a biplane, of course. So there's a wing on the top, wing on the bottom, and with that comes struts between them, comes a lot of bracing wires to keep the whole thing sort of in the sweet spot between rigid and flexible. A lot of its strength is in the fact that it's able to flex where needed. Another thing that helps it flex is the fact that under here, in the wing structure here, while they're covered in fabric, mostly just like the Chipmunk, the structure here is actually wood. So the wood has a lot more flex in it than the all metal structure of the Chipmunk. And if we grab a handy wingtip here, which is all legitimate and part of the pre-flight, and give it a wiggle, the whole thing's kind of flexing along its length. So just like the Chipmunk, the Tiger Moth has two cockpits, one for the instructor, one for the student. The difference here is that the student sits in the back, and this is for weight and balance reasons. When you're flying it solo, as I've just come back from on what's turned out to be a lovely evening here at Ardmore, you sit in the back also. So a consequence of that is it's quite a long way from where I sit right down to the nose, and the camera is not lying. It's really hard to see where you're going. So that's kind of even without the sun, that's my forward view from the pilot's position. So to sort of see anything, I've got to kind of stick my head out this way or out that way. The cockpit, again, like the Chipmunk, is a bit of a time capsule. So you can see it's dominated by this compass down the bottom here, which honestly hardly ever gets used. And then we've got our standard set of instruments. We've got a turn and slip indicator here, old 2-needle style, very much a World War II relic. They didn't continue with them after that. Not quite as intuitive as the ball and bat version we have. Got an RPM gauge over on the side, oil pressure gauge sitting down there, altimeter, airspeed indicator, and some sort of bubbly I don't know how to say it, inclinometer to tell you whether you're going up or down. If you found yourself inside cloud in a Tiger Moth, it would be a very bad day indeed. So we rely instead on what we can see outside and what the wind on our face is telling us. And speaking of that, there is a lot of wind on your face when you're flying a Tiger Moth. There's a difference down the back here as well, which we'll have to kneel down to see. So, strictly speaking, the Tiger Moth is not a tail wheel aeroplane at all, because it doesn't have a tail wheel. It instead has this sprung skid arrangement with a little steel plough, I suppose, on the end, because it does plough up the grass, and you can see some grass on it. And that drags along behind us. It's useful for a couple of things. It's connected to the rudders to a degree. So when I move the rudder pedals left and right, that plough wants to go left and right, so it helps us turn. But it also serves as our only brake, because the Tiger Moth, certainly as it came from the factory, had no brakes. So we just rely on that digging into the grass, aided by a little bit of back stick to slow us down, which is fine if you're on a big grass runway. If you're on a sealed runway, which is not the natural environment for the Tiger Moth, it becomes a little bit more difficult. So this particular aeroplane was built in 1942 in New Zealand. Tiger Moths, one of the good things about them is they didn't require complicated tooling because they're all made of wood. So they were made at several locations across the then British Empire during World War II. This one was made in 1942 at Rongotai, which is Wellington's airport to this day, and until I think about the 1980s or possibly 1990s, the shed where they made this and hundreds of other Tiger Moths served as our domestic terminal. Up the front, and I will show you the engine in a little bit more detail later on in another video. We've got the Gypsy Major Mark 1 up the front with 130 horsepower, 4-cylinder inverted engine, driving a fixed pitch wooden prop, which is actually a feature rather than a glitch. The big benefit of a wooden prop is if for whatever reason you nose the aeroplane over or taxied into something, the prop shatters, the engine stops, and you haven't done much damage to the engine compared to if you had a big solid metal prop. Last thing we'll look at is the fuel tank as we come back to where we started. Fuel tank is that corrugated thing that sits up between the two wings, just forward and ahead of the forward passenger or instructor, for reasons which we could go into a whole other video about. And gravity feeds down through this pipe and down into the carburetor and the engine. And for that reason you need to, much like the chipmunk I suppose, you need to maintain positive pressure the whole time or the engine will stop, which it'll do if you do a not particularly good loop or barrel roll or don't maintain positive G throughout your maneuvers. So that is the Tiger Moth, Bravo Lima India, based here at Ardmore in New Zealand. There is going to be lots more Tiger Moth videos, I promise you, so pop any requests and questions in the comments and I'll see you later. And yes, there are some other rather special aeroplanes. Oh look, there's another Tiger Moth. See what you can spot as we go around the hangar. This is not your ordinary shed full of Cessna 172s. No offense, Cessna 172s. Cheers, see you next time.